Welcome back to City of Angels, Conversations That Heal LA. We have an entire new season for you of conversations about spirituality, metaphysics, and personal growth. I'm Stefan Lovegrove.
And I am Suzanne Quast. And what if we were to tell you everything you know about astrology is wrong? Well, our next guest is going to do just that. He has been an astrologist for 18 years to people like Courtney Cox and Rashida Jones. And I personally have gone to him for the last 10 years. And he has been chillingly accurate and a guiding light in my life. And I'm so excited to welcome Jade Luna.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Welcome.
I think one of the places to start is your opinion on Western astrology. And what that means to people at home is, so the horoscopes you're reading and the astrological sign you think you are, you might not be. So if you think you're a Taurus, you might not be a Taurus. And what does that mean?
Well, and the good news is I base what I do off of facts. What I state can be scientifically verified. The role of an ancient astrologer was two things. One was the 12-month calendar that we see.
Okay.
And the other one was the observing of the zodiac in the sky. And when Catholicism was born, it created anti-divination laws making astrology illegal. So the 12-month calendar got implemented as the actual zodiac. The first day of Aries is the very first day of spring. That used to be our January 1st. That's when we used to have the new year, was the first day of spring. All astrology is the 12-month calendar around that. The tropical zodiac, as we call it, Western astrology, was used by the Egyptians and ancient civilizations for one thing, and that was for growing crops. But the stars in the sky, that was used for the analysis of human beings. And we no longer use, in the West, the stars in the sky. We are still using the calendar year as an actual zodiac. And the reason why I have a problem with that is because astrology means science of the stars, not science of the seasons. So now something interesting happened 2,000 years ago, which is one of the reasons why we say we're in 2018 to this day. The 12 months of the calendar year aligned perfectly with the 12 signs of the zodiac. The zodiac keeps moving, never stays in the same place twice. That alignment hasn't taken place in 26,000 years, meaning 2018 years ago, which is the reason why we say we're in 2018, the zodiac, the 12 signs, aligned with the 12 months of the calendar. And unfortunately, a series of events took place at that time. Catholicism created anti-divination laws, being one of them. A bunch of astrology books were written at that time. We have had more astrology books written when that alignment took place than at any other time in history. So a lot of the Western astrology books are using the calculations of the calendar year, not the actual zodiac in the sky.
Got it. It's so much though. So for people out there who are like, okay, so what does that really mean? It basically means that astrology is the science of the stars.
That's correct.
Not of the seasons.
That's correct.
And your type of astrology, Asterian Astrology, is astrology of the stars.
It is proper science. And there's a common debate that and by the way, we've been pushing this for a while. NASA shifted 2 years ago to our system because we were able to scientifically verify that the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Babylonians used the system I'm using. We were able to verify that, so NASA officially shifted to this system. So we are getting across here.
This is interesting. It is so historic across cultures and continents and countries. And we actually got a viewer question about this. A lot of people in the Western world, especially I think within Judeo-Christian thought, have this resistance that like astrology is not compatible with their religion or against their religion. So I'm wondering, because we talk about all kinds of spiritual religious paths on the show, what is the resistance for 2,000 years plus? What is the resistance to this science for people?
Because in ancient time, astrologers and priests were at battle of who had more power. And when Catholicism was born, they inserted a bunch of phrases inside the Bible to get rid of astrologers because they wanted priests having more power than astrologers. So hence that was the original reason why astrologers started getting a bad reputation. But originally, the Dead Sea Scrolls, which you don't hear a lot about, because of the fact, has more references to reincarnation and astrology than any other biblical book. Astrology was huge in ancient culture, but again, there became a battle between priests and astrologers of who had more power, and they wanted to get rid of the astrologers, and it won. It won. So people still have those beliefs, but yet in ancient culture, they believed the 12 signs of the zodiac were the 12 personalities of God, and which sign you were reflected what type of personality you were. And there was a secret system which I used, which was hidden to the priest caste, which is a 27 sign system. They believe the 12 signs was for the ignorant, as even India says, where the 27 signs were meant for the Brahmin caste, the priests. It even goes on to this day, and I use the 27 sign system, which I learned in India.
Got it. Well, you also talk about that through astrology, it's being in alignment with your true self. And I think that's interesting probably to a lot of people. But what exactly does that mean?
Well, first, that's what makes astrology so important, because my belief is the only reason why we are in a human form is to know who we are. And astrology is the first and foremost science to help us find who we are and to recognize our personal relationship with the divine. And so using a wrong system, I think, throws the actual purpose of astrology off, which is be who you are. And also, when I went to India, I learned astrology in India. And, I was born May 8th, and my teacher, the first day of class, was like, oh, when were you born? I said, May 8th. He goes, oh, you're an Aries. I'm like, oh, no, that's Taurus. By the way, I had Taurus even tattooed on my arm.
Oh,
I was 18 in India at this time. And he said, I want to show everybody here something. He goes, we have a couple Westerners here in this class. He said, I'm going to give you 12 pieces of paper with 4 paragraphs of the 12 signs, but I've removed the names of the zodiac signs from them, and I want you to individually all pick the sign that you feel that you are the most, making a very valid point. You only think you're that sign because you've grown up reading it. That's the only reason why I picked Aquarius, which means he wanted everyone in the room, because he didn't want people saying, oh, no, I'm definitely a Taurus. I'm not an Aries. He wanted to prove a point that you only believe you're that sign because you've been reading it your whole life, and it's detrimental to you finding who you are. So I picked Aquarius.
And you're not.
No,
right?
Well, there's something now that in real astrology, I became an Aries, and my Mars is in Aquarius, which rules Aries, so actually Aquarius was a smart hit.
So let's talk about this, because for somebody watching this who this is brand new to them, and they're thinking, my whole life I've been reading Taurus or Aries or Sagittarius or whatever. So now you're telling me I may not be the sign that I think I am, and that's an identity crisis for people.
Yep.
And I've heard you say there's a lot of resistance. People say, no, I assure you I'm this sign. So what would you say to somebody who's watching this and it's just, this is all new, I may not be the sign I think I am, this is brand new information. What would you say to them about there's stuff to explore here? Where would you point
Well, the good news is about that, I'm not a fan of the 12 signs anyways. Neither are the priests in India. Neither were our ancient priests. They had their own system, which they believed was the core of astrology, and I used that system. There are 27 signs. There are 3 types of each sign. There are 3 types of Virgos. There's 3 types of Tauruses, and they're so vastly different from one another. I don't believe you can all put them together and say they're all the same sign to begin with. So I already know for a fact that because of my own experience of struggling with making this change myself, like going Aries, not Taurus. Believe it or not, Aries and Taurus wasn't enough to convince me. But when I went from having a Leo moon to a Cancer moon, I'm like, oh, I definitely have a Cancer moon, like 100%. I can just tell on an intuitive level. And a lot of ancient cultures use the moon as your sun, as your real sign, not your sun anyways.
Okay. For also people who are like, what does that mean? What is a moon sign, A, and B, how do you then find out what you really are?
Well, first answer the first question. There's a zodiac in the sky, and this is also important to understand. Western astrology does not observe the zodiac you see in the sky, which to me is offensive, because our ancient Egyptians, our Babylonians, our Hindus spent thousands of years erecting planetariums and observatories to pay attention to those stars, and just simply ignore all of that history and just focus on, Linda Goodman's sun signs, because it makes $56 million a year, is really, to me, an offensive to this ancient science that we've had for a long, long time.
Okay.
But in that zodiac, all the planets move through that zodiac, and each of those planets have a role in your personality. And this is interesting from a scientific fact. The moon might be stronger for human beings because the moon controls the water on this planet. It controls the tides. We know that through science. And human beings are 75% water. So why would the moon not have a bigger effect on us than the sun? So you have to look at the sun sign and the moon sign to get your true nature anyway. So anyone just says, oh no, I'm definitely that sun sign, is because they don't also realize the moon comes into role. So does your rising sign. And in this 27 sign system, there's a whole animal totem inside of it.
I remember.
Unfortunately, astrology is such an advanced science that it's, I think a lot of people struggle with making changes because it means they have to learn.
Right. Well, and people don't like being wrong. I mean, I think what's clear to me in having this conversation is this is the reason people don't think it's a science. Because if you're opening up Cosmopolitan and picking one of 12, and you've been reading this your whole life, since you were 13, this is not what you're talking about. This is such a more advanced conversation than pick one of 12 and read your horoscope in the local Idaho newspaper. There's just so much to this. And I wonder what your perspective is on what is the correct way to use astrology? Because I think we've all seen people use it in what appears to be a very disempowering way. Yeah. Once somebody gets the correct information, like obviously you've helped Suzanne for 10 years, how should we be using this information and this science?
And I prefer to use it for the purposes that I stated earlier. I think the only reason why we're in human form is to realize ourselves. And so I like to use astrology to help people realize who they are. It is predictive, but we are weather forecasters for people. Astrology is the destiny of energy, meaning, there's years you're supposed to have bad years. There's years you're supposed to have good years. Astrology is destiny of energy, but you still have free will in how you respond to that energy. And how you respond ultimately to the energy of the universe determines whether you have a good or bad life, not astrology. Astrology, though, through fate, is going to will energy your way. But you have infinite free will in your response to that. But we do believe that the signs you're born there, especially with the 27, not the 12, we believe we can also determine somewhat of someone's response to certain energies. But still, there definitely is, I prefer to keep astrology in the light of being just pure energy. There's some deeper stuff to it, which I was just getting ready to say there. But I, don't purposely always like to use that side. I like to keep it really simple and helping people realize their true inner essence.
Got it. So it's not your destiny, it's the energy. And so you're predispositioned to certain types of emotions. Would that be accurate to say?
Yes.
And then that will then help your response and how you deal with whatever is currently going on in your life.
That's right. And so I don't feel incorrect. My guru in India would always say, a lot of life is choice. You get to choose whether you like Coke or Diet Pepsi. There's two things you can't choose: who you marry and when you die. Unchangeable.
You can't.
Yes, that's known in India. Because
wait. You can't choose who you marry and who you die, or how many times you get married.
Okay, let's first, according to Indian mythology. Because the theory of reincarnation, we eventually realize that we are the divine in ourselves. And we have karma with thousands and thousands of hundreds of thousands of people. And in order for you to keep evolving closer to yourself, you have to clear out a bunch of karma with specific people. So you are allotted in life to have to deal with certain people for a certain period of time. And that's just considered Indian law. I'm not saying it's the truth. I'm just saying that's Indian belief.
You just mentioned karma. And one of the things you talk about is wiping out karma.
Oh, yes.
And can you explain to our viewers what that means and how do we do it?
Well, wiping out karma really comes from just being who you are, which is the goal of an astrologer, to help people be who they are. We have to look at our light side and we have to look at our dark side. And that's one of my favorite parts. There's the sun and the moon right there. The sun is our consciousness. The moon is our subconsciousness.
Don't you find that in the personal growth world, there's a lot of people who don't want to look at the darkness, right?
Yeah, right.
We joke about people are all love and light, positive vibes only. Tell people why they need to look at their darkness and how do we begin that process? Because a lot of people don't want to go.
First of all, I am what we call in spiritual tradition an agori. An agori is a type of, using the word, in the sense of humor, an agori is like the Hindu version of a witch. And we only focus on our shadow self because we believe the light in you is already one with the universe. The only thing is your shadow doesn't know that. So the more you realize your shadow self, the farther you advance. Now, but I have a totally different take on darkness than other people do. I believe darkness is the force in the universe that's helping you realize who you are. Using pop culture as an example, Harry Potter movie. We would, and I say we as an Agori, it's a type of Hindu path, we would see Voldemort as being the true master of that whole thing, because we believe darkness sees what you need in order to advance, and it will oppose you to become stronger in yourself. So Voldemort, as an example, saw that Harry Potter was great and said, if I oppose him, I can make him a master. So, and he did. So we believe darkness is a force that is out there helping you find who you are. Yet there are forces in the universe, which I spiritualize that. There are forces in the universe that I believe oppose us to pull our shadow work up, which is what life is about, is to pull your shadow up so you can view the stuff that is sitting in your subconscious. And how you deal with the things that are sitting in your subconscious really determine the outcome of your life, whether you have a good or bad life. The universe's job is to pull up in you what you really are under the surface. And in Indian belief, it's not your light that reincarnates. Your light is one with the universe at all times. It's your shadow self that keeps reincarnating to eventually realize itself as the light. So I'm a believer that you don't have to focus on light. You only have to focus on your darkness, because the light in you is already one with the universe. Your shadow doesn't know that.
If you focus on the darkness, then could you also say that then the universe presents situations or people in your life and perhaps patterns in your life in order to clear that out? And you're going to keep facing the same issue, maybe with different people, masked in a different way, but it's essentially the same thing until you deal with it. Is that similar to what
Exactly
you're saying?
that. We believe that someone will keep repeating something until it's acknowledged by your conscious mind. See, the moon in astrology is your subconscious mind, the part of you you can't see. But in India, they believe your moon is stronger because your subconscious mind, they believe, is still, in this age that we're in, more powerful than your conscious mind. An example of that would be, say, that someone has an addiction to smoking. Your conscious mind can say, I want to stop all day long, but your subconscious mind is going to keep grabbing that cigarette. So you have to look at what is the motivation behind grabbing that cigarette before you can let it go. So we believe, and I say we, I'm referring to a type of Hindu tradition called Nagori, which is a Hindu witch. And we believe that looking at the shadow is of utmost importance for self-realization.
I feel like that's just good advice in life.
Right. I believe looking at darkness is the smartest thing we can do. And I always make the joke, if someone's only talking about light, they're trying to sell you something. Because real spirituality is about embracing the full totality of who you are. And we can't be judgmental towards our shadow self. We have to fully accept that. That's how you evolve. So our shadow self wants full acknowledgement, acceptance, and love. And I believe the only way to do that is to look at your darkness.
I think this stuff with sun versus moon, solar versus lunar is so interesting, because now I think it's proven in science and psychology and every field that studies the mind that our subconscious mind is running the show. But people don't want to hear that.
Or they're scared of it.
Right. So it's interesting that people would so embrace the sun part of it and not want to acknowledge how powerful this dimension of it really is. I'm curious, what is your conception of the divine now?
Well, you know, what I just said, that being an Agori, I focus on the darker side of life. I worship the goddess Kali, or the Dark Mother. Her Greek name is Hecate. And I believe that force is the divine.
Okay, when you say that, because there's people going to be like, he does what?
I believe God is a woman, 100%. 100%.
Okay, I can get down
And
with
I
that.
believe that most everybody knows that. I even think men know that. They just don't want to admit it yet. Because you see two men, just as an example, in a bar. It's like, it's time for me to straighten up. It's time for me to get married. He knows intuitively that she's going to straighten him up. She knows that. Or he knows that. And I believe that we intuitively know the female is the higher of the two. And I think that eventually we're going to come into that realization in our lifetime, if not a little bit after.
What about the thought that you said that the God is woman? What about the thought that it's neither?
That's true, but we are in a human form, and so form matters. I believe in some sense, like, I don't like formless talk, because why are we in a form then?
Right.
Why are we in a form then? I'm a real big advocate for form being higher than formless, because, it's like, it's nice, let's just say a mother has a child. It's like, it's so nice having that form there. That form activates that love in their heart. A spouse can do that. It's that form that introduces us to that love. You remove that, object, that person, that energy, and love becomes more challenging. I had one person recently, I was giving a seminar, said, I don't believe you, formless is the highest. Again, formless is the reality. We eventually do end up formless light, but we get there through the form. And he was like, I don't believe you at all. And I said, do you have children? And he said, yeah. I'm like, I already won this one. I said, how about we just put your children in a box and ship them to another country and you internalize it all? It's formless. It's better having them there, isn't it? It opens up your heart more, having the form matters.
Well, and I think that's connected to the discussion about darkness, because to the people that say, well, we really are pure light at the core, I actually agree. But we chose to come here and have a human experience with the shadow self and all this stuff triggered and opportunities for healing. So any good spiritual path has to honor that, or else why are we here having this human physical experience? We know it's not ultimately reality, but we're having this experience. So there's got to be meaning in it. I love this concept.
I'm like, is this
and
real?
that is the shadow self. We believe your light is the part of you that's already won, but our form is the shadow. The belief in Agora, which is pretty intense, is that we all get ruined in the end. We have to let this whole thing go. And your personality is a response to the knowledge and the knowing that you're already going to get ruined in this game, which means you do not get out of this thing without ruination, whether it's through age, loss, separation. We all have to psychically endure that knowledge every day we wake up. And your personality, we even believe your physical appearance is based upon a response to that knowledge. So, and that is the shadow. And we believe there's a force out there that rules over that type of ruination. We see that as God. We see that as the great divine mother, where she eventually wants to move you into infinite light. In order to get there, she has to separate you from this existence.
That is so interesting, because I feel like the more I study even the most out there of paths and ideas and wisdom traditions, you find that so many common themes are being said in so many different ways.
Right.
And a text that I love, A Course in Miracles, essentially says this hallucination of separation occurred, because we actually are one with everything that is, and one with the universe, and one with source. But this hallucination occurred, and everything that has happened since birth, it teaches, is your response and mechanisms of trying to cope with this hallucination of separation. And it's so interesting. I know they're different concepts, but it's just...
It's identical, though. That's identical. The only two things that exist in the universe are light and dark. One is all that creates union, and one that creates all of separation. Unfortunately, we only get to the light through separation. And how we endure separation is how we enter the light.
That is power.
I think like we might need to repeat that one more time.
Let me see if I could even say that the same way. There's only two things in creation, light and dark. Light is all that creates unity in your life. Dark is all that creates separation. But through the separation, we end up getting the light.
So go through. You have to go
through. It's almost like embracing the more challenging aspects of life for a quicker way to get self-realization. And that is, I'm a full advocate that is reality. It's not even, it's my spiritual path, but I don't think it's a path. I think it's everybody's path. They just don't know it yet.
Right.
Well, and some people are afraid of that. So they do things to cope, or they do things to push it away, rather than like what you're saying is go knee deep, go head first and get through it. And then you'll get through it quicker.
I'm not opposed to someone going through the path of ruination. We've had discussions like that before. I'm actually an advocate for it, because I believe the light comes out on the other side much quicker. It's like, don't resist that. Let's experience that, and then let's move on from that. Don't resist it. I am not an advocate for people stuffing things underneath the carpet where they can't see it at all. And it's like, if you look at Catholicism right now, it doesn't work. You have to expose everything inside of you and give it love and acceptance. Then it goes away. You can't just act like it's not there. You turn it into a monster then. So I believe that the path of self-realization is just looking at your shadow. Light, you can worry about it or not. You don't have to. Your shadow is what needs full acknowledgement, recognition, love, and acceptance.
And that's why go ahead.
No,
I was just going to say, that's why I'm not scared as a coach when it looks like somebody's life is falling apart and they're like, I don't want to deal with this. This is not why I hired you. Now this stuff is coming up and my boyfriend dumped me and this, that, and the other, and everything's going wrong. But I've done this long enough to see, it's about to get so good. Oh, this is the healing. Oh no, this is actually why you came to me. You didn't know. Your soul knew. This is why you came to me. This is the work.
Yep. Get comfortable with what makes you uncomfortable, and you can have peace in anything, because it's easy to focus on light and say, oh my God, I'm having such an amazing day. But what about the hard stuff? If you can find peace in the hard stuff, then you can have peace all around. So I'm about embracing that hard stuff early. Let's get through that, find peace in it, then the rest of your life you can enjoy.
Well, you talk about the hard stuff. So some of our viewers have reached out with some questions, so thank you guys. Jeff wants to know, what happens when you see something tragic in someone's chart, and how do you then handle that? And I also have a story that can go along in addition to what you said.
It depends on the magnitude of what's coming. There are certain alignments that you know. There's an alignment, as an example, called the Mark of Medusa. And when you see it, it's as an astrologer, it's scary. It's when all planets are on the right or left side of the north nodes. And it's called Kalasarpa Yoga in India. And it generally indicates someone having a full reversal in their life, where they gain and then something happens where they have it stripped from them.
Wow.
And it's pretty severe. I mean, I've had people with it go through severe loss, losing all of their kids. I've had crazy alignments where you see it. And and I've had a couple clients that I've been with them as an astrologer before the sweep and after the sweep, where when they came in, they had things that they don't have anymore. And I see that as an incredible opportunity. I mean, when I see those, what we call darker energies, and those darker things in someone's chart, I do find the power in that. So I don't mind being that one that gets in there and helps with that type of work. What do? You don't say it. And I don't really refrain from, I'm gonna go backwards. I don't refrain from saying it, but I find very subtle and very nice ways to say a major transformation is coming.
Which can
right.
say, because I remember when I went in to see Jade, I had been seeing him for 4 years. And it was the 4th year that when I sat down with you, you looked and you said, I can finally share this with you. But you were going through a period called Sadi Sette. I was like, ¿Cómo se what? Sadi what? And you said, if you look it up, you're going to be frightened by it. But what that means is 7 years of hell.
Yeah.
And he said, I can share this with you now because you're coming out of it and you only have a year left. And leading up to that, you never said you were going through this period. You just reiterated the importance of how I have control over my life. Things are going to be a little difficult. It's like you gave me the tools without demoralizing me. Because you said, if I told you that wouldn't have served you. That wouldn't have helped you.
You are a good example of it, because some of them are much more intense, which you don't have the more intense. You don't have the Kalasarpa yoga that we talked about, which is called the Mark of Medusa. You don't have that. But you are someone that when you were sitting in front of me at the very beginning, I knew that we would be having very different discussions in a couple of years. I knew that from day one. And so you don't interfere. You have to let the process of the person's education continue with the situation they're in while planting seeds. Your life is going to be different very soon.
Yeah. And I remember also thinking at the time, 7 years of hell, oh my gosh. But at the same time, it made me feel like I wasn't crazy. Because up until that point, everything was hard. It was a challenge to do anything. And I was like, is it me? What's going on? And then when you hear it's a part of my chart, I felt like there was some truth to that. And I was like, that now makes sense. And it gave me some inner peace, if that makes any sense.
100%. Well, astrology is what it's supposed to do is, in some respects, confirm what is going on in the deepest part of your subconscious. And some people are more aware of that. And the only when I was a Western astrologer, which I was very early in my life, my readings succeeded through intuition. Now they succeed through the science. I don't even need my intuition, nor do I even call upon it. Unless someone's going through things, your intuition is, how and what do you say to this person to get them through it? That's where intuition, not what you see intuition, you see it through the science, but how do you guide that person? That's where the intuition then comes into play.
I told Suzanne, though, I think it's so significant. There's so many people that you can go to one time and you can have a good session. And, I always laugh. People will go to a psychic and they love what they tell them is going to happen in the next 6 months. But I don't need your review 1 week later from great session. We need to see 6 months down the road. Are we still trusting this person? And I told her, I said, this speaks so highly to Jade's abilities and science of this, that for 10 years, this has been a guiding light for your life. I think that's so significant.
He's the best. You guys really should hire him. And I'm not saying that with any other motive than just he's been very significant and helpful in my life. Thank you, Jade.
You're welcome.
Okay, so Stephanie has a question. She said, do you think your sign has anything to do with karma?
Your astrology chart is only karma. The second you take your first breath, it is noted in ancient mysticism that the great divine mother arrives when you take your first breath and infuses your karma from your previous life right into you through your chart. So you were just born. You haven't done anything yet. So it's not the karma of this life. It is the karma you created in the life right before. Your chart is nothing other than the karma you created your most recent life. And that's what your chart is.
I have a question. What do you believe is happening collectively on the planet right now? Is the age of Aquarius a concept you buy into, or is that purely Western? What do you see happening?
I love that question. Okay, no Western
I'm tired of
astrologer,
hearing about it. So
Western astrologer can explain why there are ages. They really have no idea. You have to be able to observe the wobble of the Earth's axis to really know the ages. And only the Egyptians, Babylonians, and Hindus, the Earth's axis determines the ages.
What do you mean by ages?
The ages that we're in, the age of Aquarius, the age of Pisces. So next time a Western astrologer comes on and you talk to one or comes on your show, say, how do you explain the ages? Well, it's only explained to the wobble of the Earth's axis. And what is so amazing is the Egyptians calculated the wobble of the Earth's axis perfectly. And so the axis goes to the zodiac and determines the ages. So you have to be able to observe the stars at night and the wobble of the axis to determine the ages. We're not in the age of Aquarius yet. We're getting ready for it. That's what all this chaotic energy in the universe is right now, is we're at the very tail end of an age. We're getting ready for the age of Chimera. And then we slip into the age of Aquarius.
What are we in now?
We're in the age of Pisces right now, but in the priest cast, we call it the age of Porcus. Then we're getting ready for the age of Chimera, and we're seeing a shift of an age right now.
What should we be getting ready for?
Oh.
Do we want to know?
Yes,
oh, yeah.
Yes, we do. I want to know. I'm sure you guys...
I was told each year is going to be consecutively more challenging.
Like for us individually?
Yeah, for the age of Chimera starts in 2070. And even now, but with a 26,000 year cycle pattern, that's close. That means we are really close. We're talking about ages that are, that move around every 26,000 years. So to be 70 years away or 50 from closing out that age, we're really close, right? And that's what's going on right now. Everything right now on this planet is being used as a catalyst to pull up the darkest stuff, so it can be seen, so we can clear it out, because the age that we're going into next is, right now, the age we're in is 75% dark, 25% light, and we're shifting to 75% light, 25% dark. The only way we can get there is if the subconscious mind of the universe is fully exposed. That's happening now, and I don't like it. I definitely do not like what's going on politically right now, and I am a Democrat, but I understand it. Mm-hmm. We have to look at this because it's there. And it takes ignorance to expose light on other ignorance. And that's exactly the way I see what's going on the planet. Ignorance is exposing other ignorance. And that is a necessary stage right now. But I could see this getting pretty intense. And where this can all go, there's a lot of different opinions.
So what can we do personally to make this better for ourselves and collectively as a whole?
Get comfortable with the things that make you uncomfortable.
I feel like
that is the mode for all peace, and the opportunity for that is higher right now than there ever has been, because there's a lot of things that make people uncomfortable right now. But the goal of life and the goal of peace is to know all of yourself, and then eventually all of the universe. That's how you realize yourself. And so we have to see all these things to get rid of them.
Okay. Well.
And we've refused to see them for a long time.
This is clearly already always been there. What's going on right now universally, it's just been exposed through someone's incredible ignorance.
Okay. Well, before we get to our round robin, where we ask you rapid fire questions.
Speed round? Round robin? Russian roulette. Let's just throw out games. Duck, duck, goose. Go ahead.
That's true. Yes, rapid fire. I want to ask a question that Shahid had. And this is, can you tell if someone has been in multiple lives with you?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
I mean, I feel like I can feel it.
Oh, 100%. That is called comfort. When you end up with someone you've known for lifetimes, it's just pure comfort. You just feel like you've known that person for an incredibly long period of time. And
is that what it is when you meet someone and you think, I feel like we've known each other? Is the most likely interpretation past life?
Yes, that's my interpretation, especially with someone I've never met before, and that comfort's there. And it also can be compatible energies too. Like we're all talking right now with our physical bodies, but I pay attention to what I call the undercurrent of everything. The undercurrent matters. It's like the energy that's not being said. And in India, my guru in India would always like, pay attention to the undercurrent more than actually what you physically see, because that matters. But it could be, you could be sitting next to someone in a restaurant and go, I don't know why this person just makes me really uncomfortable. That is a incompatibility in the undercurrent of energy. And I pay attention to that no matter where I'm at and what situation I'm in. Words and the physical don't mean nearly as much to me as what that feeling of the undercurrent is. And that's all created through the subconscious. We're all reading each other and talking to each other in many different ways at all times.
So when you say uncomfortable with somebody else's energy, that doesn't mean that somebody's bad or good. It just means that you two aren't compatible.
It is predictive, though, of where that relationship would go. And right early on, I believe when I'm sitting next to someone, if there is that uncomfort, I know that will reveal itself in time. And
and when you ignore that and you proceed and you're like, maybe it's just a bad first impression, and you proceed, how many times have I learned the hard way?
Yes.
You should not have proceeded.
Undercurrent and astrology rules over the lunar is the undercurrent. The solar is what we're physically seeing in this world. So the moon is rules over the undercurrent, the intuition, the subconscious mind, and there's all kinds of conversations that happen there without words ever being said. And my guru in India would always say, we had to be silent when we were there and only learn to deal with people's undercurrent. And you have very interesting relationships with people when you're only dealing with the undercurrent of who they are.
I bet.
So thought-provoking of a conversation. It's opened up so many questions, but we'll end with our speed round, or as it apparently is now called, our round robin. So,
that does not make any sense.
I know. A song on your playlist right now.
Oh, wow. There are so many of them. Corn here to stay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, you're also a musician. I feel like you should acknowledge that as well.
Yes, I am. And unfortunately, I have to separate that from a lot of my work because, which is an interesting subject, is the fact that the music I do play is about that shadow self. And it confuses people when they actually get into it. Like, wait a minute, he's so conscious. Why is he doing something that dark? Well, guess what? I explained why on this show. I think it's the only thing that matters.
Very cool.
I listened to Corn here to stay on the way here, and I was like, okay, so I'm going to say Corn. It's on the playlist.
Great. Yeah. The best book you've read recently?
Confessions of a Serial Killer.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Not Linda Miller Sun Signs?
No. No, there's crazy stories in karma that are beyond people's even understanding. There's karmic stuff that is so bizarre and so weird. My attraction to a book like that has nothing to do with the fact that people are being harmed, because I'm a harm no one person. Like, focus on your shadow self, but harm no one. That's and that's why I believe I can focus on darker things and people are still very safe with me, because I'm a harm no one type of person. But I believe if you're really a nonviolent person like I am, then you can fully explore your shadow self because it's harmless.
I'm fascinated with stuff like that. With serial killers, the first 48.
I was reading that book last night, but it's also understanding the bizarre karmic patterns people are in. There's a lot of unusual karmic stuff, and those situations that are weird, dark, and unusual have a whole element of karma between them that people wouldn't even understand. Would want to understand. Yeah.
Do you listen to podcasts and or have a regular favorite?
I don't.
A lot of people don't.
Yeah, it's okay.
And it's, but I have a particular reason, you know, it's like I don't branch. I found my home base spiritually.
Sure.
I found my home base and I've been there for many, many years. And I keep learning from that base. I generally don't branch out too much and hear what's going on out there. And I also am incredibly busy between this job as an astrologer and being a musician. I'm a touring musician. I'm also an astrologer. And the combination of those two gives me very, very little time.
Understandable. Well, I don't know if you'll have time for the next question either, but then what is your favorite hangout spot in LA?
Oh, the rainbow by far. I love the rainbow.
Where is the rainbow?
The rainbow is on Sunset.
What's that?
Oh, yes.
It's the rainbow.
That makes sense, actually, because they have a lot of live music.
Yes,
right?
my music project played there on Friday night. Yeah.
Okay.
It's super
Oh,
fun.
cool. Yeah.
What are you most proud of in your life?
You know, the conversations we had today, the actual ability to fully honor and appreciate my shadow self to its fullest. It made me a completely peaceful person. And it's the biggest accomplishment I have. Astrology helps me in that. Music allows me to express that. I, right now in my life, feel the most complete I've ever felt. And I'm very proud of that because I've been able to fully embrace my shadow and appreciate it, honor it, and love it. And that's my biggest achievement.
Well, very cool. Well, if you had one message for the world and you had to deliver that in 30 seconds, what would it be?
Focus on your shadow. Focus on the things that you don't want to focus on. Get comfortable with the things that make you uncomfortable. You will ultimately have peace if you can, and the universe will force it anyways. So unfortunately, we are in an age where I believe the only reason we're here is to know ourselves and to know the whole thing and to not judge who we really are.
So all of this is amazing. Where do we find the signs that we are?
My book, 27 Stars.
Okay.
27 Stars. Jade Luna. It's available everywhere.
Great. And then it'll tell us what our sun and moon signs are.
That's
and how to know
you have
who we
to
are
you have to have
again.
an astrologer help you with your moon sign, but your sun sign is in there.
Very
Beautiful.
cool.
Well, this was such a good, deep, thought-provoking conversation. Hopefully you have several things at least to reflect on in the days and weeks and months to come. So follow Jade, check him out. Suzanne has given, I think, the highest of recommendations as well. And thank you all for joining us. As always, we will be back soon with another conversation for you here on City of Angels. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye, guys.